Good evening. We break into your coverage here on Eagle Eye TV for a breaking news update. We are standing by as we expect any moment now the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to deliver his first State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress in Washington, D.C. My name is Brandon Etheredge. I will be your host and moderator for this evening. Following tonight's State of the Union, we will have a panel of politically involved students here on Auburn's campus to give their input on what was said during this speech. Now, some things that we expect to come out of this speech today. We expect to hear about immigration. That is one of the big policy pushes that President Trump has made during his time in office and is expected to continue on as we move forward into the rest of his presidency. We are also expecting to hear about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which went into effect just a few short weeks ago. The president traveling internationally recently to tout that plan that he had put into place. We are expecting to hear a lot tonight. From what we've heard from those in Washington, it is expected to be an uplifting speech. His goal is to be uplifting this evening. He said in a session with news anchors from around the country this afternoon, he said that he would be honored if he could unify the country. He says that's something that he's working on. Of course, we will talk to our panel about that in the coming hours as we watch this speech and as we get ready to see what President Trump has to say at that State of the Union in front of a joint session of Congress this evening. So you can see on the split screen there on the bottom, we do have the stream coming from Washington. Again, we expect this to begin any minute. If our producers can kind of give us an update where we stand on that. We are just waiting to hear for the president to begin that speech. So one thing that we do know this evening is that Melania Trump did not travel to the State of the Union with her husband, President Donald Trump, which is customary for First Ladies. They typically do travel together for these events from the White House to the Capitol building over on Capitol Hill. It is said from the First Lady's press office that she did that to greet her guests there. There will be a meeting at the White House after tonight's event, after the State of the Union, for the guest of Mrs. Trump, and she drove separately today up to the Capitol because she said she wanted to spend time this afternoon with those guests that she had invited. There are several guests coming today. Those of several of the Democratic members of Congress are dreamers, those immigrants from other countries that are in the United States illegally. There's even been a call from some Republicans in Congress for the Capitol Police to arrest those individuals. It's not likely that we will see that happen, but definitely something that will be watched for. We do know that there are some members of Congress, specifically women members, that will be wearing black this evening to stand in solidarity with those in the Me Too movement that has just swept the country, politics, Hollywood, you name the industry. So they are standing in solidarity with those people. There's also been talks of a walkout during the State of the Union address. It will be interesting to see what comes out of that. Of course, should that happen, we will talk to our panel after the event this evening. We will have full coverage. We also have some special guests coming, key leaders in the Democratic and Republican groups on campus and around our country will be joining us this evening after the State of the Union. So we do hope that you'll stay with us for that. We are, again, still standing by, waiting for the State of the Union to begin in Washington, D.C. President Trump appearing before a joint session of Congress in the House chambers in Washington. His motorcade was seen going from the White House to the Capitol building about an hour ago now. Mrs. Trump left a little bit earlier than he did to go and meet those that she had invited. There's about 15 of them, people that she had invited to enjoy this event with her. This is the president's first event like this. He has spoke to a joint session of Congress before, however, not a State of the Union. So this is something special for the president. This is his first State of the Union addressing Congress and the American public. There are people that are boycotting this event, Democratic members. It is a small group, but boycotting it, saying that they will not be there to see the president's address because they do not agree with the things that he said. They've called him a racist, and so they've said that they will boycott it and they won't be there. Other members of Congress have said, one specifically, a Democratic member earlier today said that he would rather face a bully head on. Those are the words of a congressman from Washington about him being at the event today. So there really is a lot of symbolism that is going to be happening at this today. You have those wearing black in solidarity with the Me Too movement, a boycott by several members of Congress saying that they will not be attending because they are boycotting the president, and they will not be there for his speech. You have those Republican members who are expected to, as it were, would be toe the line, staying there, supporting the president, cheering for him. And then there are members of the Democratic Party that say, they will be respectful to the presidency, no matter what their disagreements with the president. Several members of Congress have said that today. So there's also those members of Congress that we talked about a moment ago that are Democratic members, many of them that brought dreamers with them to this speech to be there. Some Republican members of Congress calling for the there is a New Mexico police officer that will be joining Melania Trump. He adopted a heroin-addicted baby, really pointing to that opioid crisis in America. So Melania Trump brought a police officer that adopted a baby that was affected by this. She's also got a transgender soldier with her this evening. So really the people that Melania is bringing along are people that sort of line up with some of the initiatives that she is pushing as First Lady, that her husband is pushing as President. It is going to be very interesting to see President Trump delivering this address tonight. One thing that is always interesting with this president that we'll be watched for tonight, will he stick to the teleprompter or will he go off on his own ideas as he goes through this speech, reading the room? That is going to be interesting to see as well. He has a very different temperament typically when he sticks to a teleprompter versus when he kind of goes off on his own ad-libbing during these events. So that'll be interesting to see which route he chooses. He gave a speech before a joint session of Congress that many viewed as sort of mild-mannered for the president and was received well many months ago. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out tonight. Should we see the same thing? We do know that the president wants to give an uplifting sort of speech. Of course, I'm sure he will be focusing on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Many companies giving workers bonuses for once that went into effect. Also, many companies announcing plans to grow their operations in America or move their operations to America following that. So I'm sure that'll be something the president speaks on as well. Again, we are waiting for the president to speak now. We are seeing there we have the double box there. If we can get that, I don't believe it's going out on this stream we have here, but we are in that double box. We can see we are waiting for the president to speak. Melania, of course, did not go to the speech with her husband. She rode separately from the White House to the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. for this joint session of Congress that the president will be speaking to this evening. So we're going to go ahead and take full screen that scene from Washington, D.C. As we continue to wait, we will be back with you in just a couple of minutes.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and the distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States, and my fellow Americans. Less than 1 year has passed since I first stood at this podium in this majestic chamber to speak on behalf of the American people and to address their concerns, their hopes, and their dreams. That night, our new administration had already taken very swift action. A new tide of optimism was already sweeping across our land. Each day since, we have gone forward with a clear vision and a righteous mission to make America great again for all Americans. Over the last year, we have made incredible progress and achieved extraordinary success. We have faced challenges we expected and others we could never have imagined. We have shared in the heights of victory and the pains of hardship. We have endured floods and fires and storms. But through it all, we have seen the beauty of America's soul and the steel in America's spine. Each test has forged new American heroes to remind us who we are and show us what we can be. We saw the volunteers of the Cajun Navy racing to the rescue with their fishing boats to save people in the aftermath of a totally devastating hurricane. We saw strangers shielding strangers from a hail of gunfire on the Las Vegas Strip. We heard tales of Americans like Coast Guard Petty Officer Ashley Leopard, who is here tonight in the gallery with Melania. Ashley was aboard one of the first helicopters on the scene in Houston during the Hurricane Harvey. Through 18 hours of wind and rain, Ashley braved live power lines and deep water to help save more than 40 lives. Ashley, we all thank you. Thank you very much. We heard about Americans like firefighter David Dahlberg. He's here with us also. David faced down walls of flame to rescue almost 60 children trapped at a California summer camp threatened by those devastating wildfires. To everyone still recovering in Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, everywhere, we are with you. We love you, and we always will pull through together, always. Thank you to David and the brave people of California. Thank you very much, David. Great job. Some trials over the past year touched this chamber very personally. With us tonight is one of the toughest people ever to serve in this House. A guy who took a bullet, almost died, and was back to work 3.5 months later. The legend from Louisiana, Congressman Steve Scalise. I think they like you, Steve. We're incredibly grateful for the heroic efforts of the Capitol Police officers, the Alexandria Police, and the doctors, nurses, and paramedics who saved his life and the lives of many others, some in this room. In the aftermath, yes. In the aftermath of that terrible shooting, we came together, not as Republicans or Democrats, but as representatives of the people. But it is not enough to come together only in times of tragedy. Tonight, I call upon all of us to set aside our differences, to seek out common ground, and to summon the unity we need to deliver for the people. This is really the key. These are the people we were elected to serve. Thank you. Over the last year, the world has seen what we always knew, that no people on earth are so fearless or daring or determined as Americans. If there is a mountain, we climb it. If there's a frontier, we cross it. If there's a challenge, we tame it. If there's an opportunity, we seize it. So let's begin tonight by recognizing that the state of our union is strong because our people are strong. And together we are building a safe, strong, and proud America. Since the election, we have created 2.4 million new jobs, including 200,000 new jobs in manufacturing alone. Tremendous numbers. After years and years of wage stagnation, we are finally seeing rising wages. Unemployment claims have hit a 45-year low. And something I'm very proud of, African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded. and Hispanic American unemployment has also reached the lowest levels in history. Small business confidence is at an all-time high. The stock market has smashed one record after another, gaining $8 trillion and more in value in just this short period of time. The great news for Americans, 401k, retirement pension, and college savings accounts have gone through the roof. And just as I promised the American people from this podium 11 months ago, we enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history. Our massive tax cuts provide tremendous relief for the middle class and small business. To lower tax rates for hardworking Americans, we nearly doubled the standard deduction for everyone. Now the first $24,000 earned by a married couple is completely tax-free. We also doubled the child tax credit. A typical family of four making $75,000 will see their tax bill reduced by $2,000, slashing their tax bill in half. In April, this will be the last time you will ever file under the old and very broken system, and millions of Americans will have more take-home pay starting next month, a lot more. We eliminated an especially cruel tax that fell mostly on Americans making less than $50,000 a year, forcing them to pay tremendous penalties simply because they couldn't afford government-ordered health plans. We repealed the core of the disastrous Obamacare. The individual mandate is now gone. Thank heaven. We slashed the business tax rate from 35% all the way down to 21%, so American companies can compete and win against anyone else anywhere in the world. These changes alone are estimated to increase average family income by more than $4,000. A lot of money. Small businesses have also received a massive tax cut and can now deduct 20% of their business income. Here tonight are Steve Staub and Sandy Keplinger of Staub Manufacturing, a small, beautiful business in Ohio. They've just finished the best year in their 20-year history. Because of tax reform, they are handing out raises, hiring an additional 14 people, and expanding into the building next door. Good feeling. One of Staub's employees, Corey Adams, is also with us tonight. Corey is an all-American worker. He supported himself through high school, lost his job during the 2008 recession, and was later hired by Staub, where he trained to become a welder. Like many hardworking Americans, Corey plans to invest his tax cut raise into his new home and his 2 daughters' education. Corey, please stand. And he's a great welder. I was told that by the man that owns that company that's doing so well. So congratulations, Corey. Since we passed tax cuts, roughly 3 million workers have already gotten tax cut bonuses, many of them thousands and thousands of dollars per worker, and it's getting more every month, every week. Apple has just announced it plans to invest a total of $350 billion in America and hire another 20,000 workers. And just a little while ago, ExxonMobil announced a $50 billion investment in the United States, just a little while ago. This, in fact, is our new American moment. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything. Tonight, I want to talk about what kind of future we're going to have and what kind of a nation we're going to be. All of us together as one team, one people, and one American family can do anything. We all share the same home, the same heart, the same destiny, and the same great American flag. Together, we are rediscovering the American way. In America, we know that faith and family, not government and bureaucracy, are the center of American life. The motto is, "In God we trust." And we celebrate our police, our military, and our amazing veterans as heroes who deserve our total and unwavering support. Here tonight is Preston Sharp, a 12-year-old boy from Redding, California, who noticed that veterans' graves were not marked with flags on Veterans Day. He decided all by himself to change that and started a movement that has now placed 40,000 flags at the graves of our great heroes. Preston, a job well done. Young patriots like Preston teach all of us about our civic duty as Americans. And I met Preston a little while ago, and he is something very special that I can tell you. Great future. Thank you very much for all you've done, Preston. Thank you very much. Preston's reverence for those who have served our nation reminds us of why we salute our flag, why we put our hands on our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and why we proudly stand for the national anthem. Americans love their country, and they deserve a government that shows them the same love and loyalty in return. For the last year, we have sought to restore the bonds of trust between our citizens and their government. Working with the Senate, we are appointing judges who will interpret the Constitution as written, including a great new Supreme Court justice and more circuit court judges than any new administration in the history of our country. We are totally defending our Second Amendment and have taken historic actions to protect religious liberty. And we are serving our brave veterans, including giving our veterans choice in their health care decisions. Last year, Congress also passed, and I signed, the landmark VA Accountability Act. Since its passage, my administration has already removed more than 1,500 VA employees who failed to give our veterans the care they deserve, and we are hiring talented people who love our vets as much as we do. And I will not stop until our veterans are properly taken care of, which has been my promise to them from the very beginning of this great journey. All Americans deserve accountability, and respect. And that's what we are giving to our wonderful heroes, our veterans. Thank you. So tonight I call on Congress to empower every cabinet secretary with the authority to reward good workers and to remove federal employees who undermine the public trust or fail the American people. In our drive to make Washington accountable, we have eliminated more regulations in our first year than any administration in the history of our country. We have ended the war on American energy, and we have ended the war on beautiful, clean coal. We are now very proudly an exporter of energy to the world. In Detroit, I halted government mandates that crippled America's great, beautiful auto workers so that we can get Motor City revving its engines again, and that's what's happening. Many car companies are now building and expanding plants in the United States, something we haven't seen for decades. Chrysler is moving a major plant from Mexico to Michigan. Toyota and Mazda are opening up a plant in Alabama, a big one, and we haven't seen this in a long time. It's all coming back. Very soon, auto plants and other plants will be opening up all over our country. This is all news Americans are totally unaccustomed to hearing. For many years, companies and jobs were only leaving us. But now, they are roaring back, they're coming back. They want to be where the action is. They want to be in the United States of America. That's where they want to be. Exciting progress is happening every single day. To speed access to breakthrough cures and affordable generic drugs, last year, the FDA approved more new and generic drugs and medical devices than ever before in our country's history. We also believe that patients with terminal conditions, terminal illness, should have access to experimental treatment immediately that could potentially save their lives. People who are terminally ill should not have to go from country to country to seek a cure. I want to give them a chance right here at home It's time for Congress to give these wonderful, incredible Americans the right to try. One of my greatest priorities is to reduce In many other countries, these drugs cost far less than what we pay in the United States, and it's very, very unfair. That is why I've directed my administration to make fixing the injustice of high drug prices one of my top priorities for the year. And prices will come down substantially. Watch. America has also finally turned the page on decades of unfair trade deals that sacrificed our prosperity and shipped away our companies, our jobs, and our wealth. Our nation has lost its wealth, but we're getting it back so fast. The era of economic surrender is totally over. From now on, we expect trading relationships to be fair and, very importantly, reciprocal. We will work to fix bad trade deals and negotiate new ones, and they'll be good ones, but they'll be fair. And we will protect American workers and American intellectual property through strong enforcement of our trade rules. As we rebuild our industries, it is also time to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. America is a nation of builders. We built the Empire State Building in just 1 year. Isn't it a disgrace that it can now take 10 years just to get a minor permit approved for the building of a simple road? I am asking both parties to come together to give us safe, fast, reliable, and modern infrastructure that our economy needs and our people deserve. Tonight, I'm calling on Congress to produce a bill that generates at least $1.5 trillion for the new infrastructure investment that our country so desperately needs. Every federal dollar should be leveraged by partnering with state and local governments and, where appropriate, tapping into private sector investment to permanently fix the infrastructure deficit, and we can do it. Any bill must also streamline the permitting and approval process, getting it down to no more than 2 years and perhaps even one. Together, we can reclaim our great building heritage. We will build gleaming new roads, bridges, highways, railways, and waterways all across our land. And we will do it with American heart, American hands, and American grit. We want every American to know the dignity of a hard day's work. We want every child to be safe in their home at night. And we want every citizen to be proud of this land that we all love so much. We can lift our citizens from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to prosperity. As tax cuts create new jobs, let's invest in workforce development, and let's invest in job training, which we need so badly. Let's open great vocational schools so our future workers can learn a craft and realize their full potential. And let's support working families by supporting paid family leave. As America regains its strength, opportunity must be extended to all citizens. That is why this year we will embark on reforming our prisons to help former inmates who have served their time get a second chance at life. Struggling communities, especially immigrant communities, will also be helped by immigration policies that focus on the best interests of American workers and American families. For decades, open borders have allowed drugs and gangs to pour into our most vulnerable communities. They've allowed millions of low-wage workers to compete for jobs and wages against the poorest Americans. Most tragically, they have caused the loss of many innocent lives. Here tonight are two fathers and two mothers, Evelyn Rodriguez, Freddie Cuevas, Elizabeth Alvarado, and Robert Mickens. Their two teenage daughters, Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens, were close friends on Long Island. But in September 2016, on the eve of Nisa's 16th birthday, such a happy time it should have been, neither of them came home. These two precious girls were brutally murdered while walking together in their hometown. 6 members of the savage MS-13 gang have been charged with Kayla and Nisa's murders. Many of these gang members took advantage of glaring loopholes in our laws to enter the country as illegal, unaccompanied, alien minors and wound up in Kayla and Nisa's high school. Evelyn, Elizabeth, Freddie, and Robert, tonight everyone in this chamber is praying for you. Everyone in America is grieving for you. Please stand. Thank you very much. want you to know that 320 million hearts are right now breaking for you. We love you. Thank you. While we cannot imagine the depths of that kind of sorrow, we can make sure that other families never have to endure this kind of pain. Tonight I am calling on Congress to finally close the deadly loopholes that have allowed MS-13 and other criminal gangs to break into our country. We have proposed new legislation that will fix our immigration laws and support our ICE and Border Patrol agents. These are great people. These are great, great people that work so hard in the midst of such danger, so that this can never happen again. The United States is a compassionate nation. We are proud that we do more than any other country anywhere in the world to help the needy, the struggling, and the underprivileged all over the world. But as President of the United States, my highest loyalty, my greatest compassion, my constant concern is for America's children, America's struggling workers, and America's forgotten communities. I want our youth to grow up, to achieve great things. I want our poor to have their chance to rise. So tonight I am extending an open hand to work with members of both parties, Democrats and Republicans, to protect our citizens of every background, color, religion, and creed. My duty, and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber, is to defend Americans, to protect their safety, their families, their communities, and their right to the American dream. Because Americans are dreamers too. Here tonight is one leader in the effort to defend our country, Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent Celestino Martinez. He goes by DJ and CJ. He said, call me either one. So we'll call you CJ. Served 15 years in the Air Force before becoming an ICE agent and spending the last 15 years fighting gang violence and getting dangerous criminals off of our streets. Tough job. At one point, MS-13 leaders ordered CJ's murder, and they wanted it to happen quickly. But he did not cave to threats or to fear. Last May, he commanded an operation to track down gang members on Long Island. His team has arrested nearly 400, including more than 220 MS-13 gang members. And I have to tell you, what the Border Patrol and ICE have done, we have sent thousands and thousands and thousands of MS-13 horrible people out of this country or into our prisons. So I just want to congratulate you, CJ. You're a brave guy. Thank you very much. And I asked CJ, what's the secret? He said, we're just tougher than they are. And I like that answer. Now let's get Congress to send you, and all of the people in this great chamber have to do it. We have no choice. CJ, we're going to send you reinforcements, and we're going to send them to you quickly. It's what you need. Over the next few weeks, the House and Senate will be voting on an immigration reform package. In recent months, my administration has met extensively with both Democrats and Republicans to craft a bipartisan approach to immigration reform. Based on these discussions, we presented Congress with a detailed proposal that should be supported by both parties as a fair compromise, one where nobody gets everything they want, but where our country gets the critical reforms it needs and must have. Here are the 4 pillars of our plan. The first pillar of our framework generously offers a path to citizenship for 1.8 million illegal immigrants who were brought here by their parents at a young age. That covers almost 3 times more people than the previous administration covered. Under our plan, those who meet education and work requirements and show good moral character will be able to become full citizens of the United States over a 12-year period. The second pillar fully secures the border. That means building a great wall on the southern border, and it means hiring more heroes like CJ to keep our communities safe. Crucially, our plan closes the terrible loopholes exploited by criminals and terrorists to enter our country, and it finally ends the horrible and dangerous practice of catch and release. The third pillar ends the visa lottery, a program that randomly hands out green cards without any regard for skill, merit, or the safety of American people. It's time to begin moving toward a merit-based immigration system, one that admits people who are skilled, who want to work, who will contribute to our society, and who will love and respect our country. The fourth and final pillar protects the nuclear family by ending chain migration. Under the current broken system, a single immigrant can bring in virtually unlimited numbers of distant relatives. Under our plan, we focus on the immediate family by limiting sponsorships to spouses and minor children. This vital reform is necessary not just for our economy, but for our security and for the future of America. In recent weeks, 2 terrorist attacks in New York were made possible by the visa lottery and chain migration. In the age of terrorism, these programs present risks we can just no longer afford. It's time to reform. These outdated immigration rules and finally bring our immigration system into the 21st century. These 4 pillars represent a down-the-middle compromise and one that will create a safe, modern, and lawful immigration system. For over 30 years, Washington has tried and failed to solve this problem. This Congress can be the one that finally makes it happen. Most importantly, these 4 pillars will produce legislation that fulfills my ironclad pledge to sign a bill that puts America first. So let's come together, set politics aside, and finally get the job done. These reforms will also support our response to the terrible crisis of opioid and drug addiction. Never before has it been like it is now. It is terrible. We have to do something about it. In 2016, we lost 64,000 Americans to drug overdoses, 174 deaths per day, 7 per hour. We must get much tougher on drug dealers and pushers if we are going to succeed in stopping this scourge. My administration is committed to fighting the drug epidemic and helping get treatment for those in need, for those who have been so terribly hurt. The struggle will be long and it will be difficult, but as Americans always do, in the end, we will succeed, we will prevail. As we have seen tonight, the most difficult challenges bring out the best in America. We see a vivid expression of this truth in the story of the Holetz family of New Mexico. Ryan Holetz is 27 years old, an officer with the Albuquerque Police Department. He's here tonight with his wife, Rebecca. Thank you, Ryan. Last year, Ryan was on duty when he saw a pregnant, homeless woman preparing to inject heroin. When Ryan told her she was going to harm her unborn child, she began to weep. She told him she didn't know where to turn, but badly wanted a safe home for her baby. In that moment, Ryan said he felt God speak to him. You will do it because you can. He heard those words. He took out a picture of his wife and their 4 kids. Then he went home to tell his wife, Rebecca. In an instant, she agreed to adopt. The Hollettes named their new daughter Hope. Ryan and Rebecca, you embody the goodness of our nation. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan and Rebecca. As we rebuild America's strength and confidence at home, we are also restoring our strength and standing abroad. Around the world, we face rogue regimes, terrorist groups, and rivals like China and Russia that challenge our interests, our economy, and our values. In confronting these horrible dangers, we know that weakness is the surest path to conflict, and unmatched power is the surest means to our true and great defense. For this reason, I am asking Congress to end the dangerous defense sequester and fully fund our great military. As part of our defense, we must modernize and rebuild our nuclear arsenal, hopefully never having to use it, but making it so strong and so powerful that it will deter any acts of aggression by any other nation or anyone else. Perhaps someday in the future there will be a magical moment when the countries of the world will get together to eliminate their nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, we are not there yet, sadly. Last year, I also pledged that we would work with our allies to extinguish ISIS from the face of the earth. 1 year later, I am proud to report that the coalition to defeat ISIS has liberated very close to 100% of the territory just recently held by these killers in Iraq and in Syria and in other locations as well. But there is much more work to be done. We will continue our fight until ISIS is defeated. Army Staff Sergeant Justin Peck is here tonight. Near Raqqa last November, Justin and his comrade, Chief Petty Officer Kenton Stacy, were on a mission to clear buildings that ISIS had rigged with explosive, so that civilians could return to that city, hopefully soon and hopefully safely. Clearing the second floor of a vital hospital, Kenton Stacy was severely wounded by an explosion. Immediately, Justin bounded into the booby-trapped and unbelievably dangerous and unsafe building and found Kenton, but in very, very bad shape. He applied pressure to the wound and inserted a tube to reopen an airway. He then performed CPR for 20 straight minutes during the ground transport and maintained artificial respiration through 2.5 hours and through emergency surgery. Kenton Stacy would have died if it were not for Justin's selfless love for his fellow warrior. Tonight, Kenton is recovering in Texas. Raqqa is liberated, and Justin is wearing his new Bronze Star with a V for Valor. Staff Sergeant Peck, all of America salutes you. Terrorists who do things like place bombs in civilian hospitals are evil. When possible, we have no choice but to annihilate them. When necessary, we must be able to detain and question them. But we must be clear, terrorists are not merely criminals. They are unlawful enemy combatants. And when captured overseas, they should be treated like the terrorists they are. In the past, we have foolishly released hundreds and hundreds of dangerous terrorists, only to meet them again on the battlefield, including the ISIS leader, al-Baghdadi, who we captured, who we had, who we released. So today, I'm keeping another promise. I just signed, prior to walking in, an order directing Secretary Mattis, who is doing a great job. Thank you. To re-examine our military detention policy and to keep open the detention facilities in Guantanamo Bay. I am asking Congress to ensure that in the fight against ISIS and al-Qaeda, we continue to have all necessary power to detain terrorists wherever we chase them down, wherever we find them. And in many cases, for them, it will now be Guantanamo Bay. At the same time, as of a few months ago, our warriors in Afghanistan have new rules of engagement. Along with their heroic Afghan partners, our military is no longer undermined by artificial timelines, and we no longer tell our enemies our plans. Last month, I also took an action endorsed unanimously by the U.S. Senate just months before. I recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Shortly afterwards, dozens of countries voted in the United Nations General Assembly against America's sovereign right to make this decision. In 2016, American taxpayers generously sent those same countries more than $20 billion in aid. That is why tonight I am asking Congress to pass legislation to help ensure American foreign assistance dollars always serve American interests and only go to friends of America, not enemies of America. As we strengthen friendships all around the world, we are also restoring clarity about our adversaries. When the people of Iran rose up against the crimes of their corrupt dictatorship, I did not stay silent. America stands with the people of Iran in their courageous struggle for freedom. I am asking Congress to address the fundamental flaws in the terrible Iran nuclear deal. My administration has also imposed tough sanctions on the communist and socialist dictatorships in Cuba and Venezuela. But no regime has oppressed its own citizens more totally or brutally than the cruel dictatorship in North Korea. North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland. We are waging a campaign of maximum pressure to prevent that from ever happening. Past experience has taught us that complacency and concessions only invite aggression and provocation. I will not repeat the mistakes of past administrations that got us into this very dangerous position. We need only look at the depraved character of the North Korean regime to understand the nature of the nuclear threat it could pose to America and to our allies. Otto Warmbier was a hard-working student at the University of Virginia, and a great student he was. On his way to study abroad in Asia, Otto joined a tour to North Korea. At its conclusion, this wonderful young man was arrested and charged with crimes against the state. After a shameful trial, the dictatorship sentenced Otto to 15 years of hard labor before returning him to America last June, horribly injured and on the verge of death. He passed away just days after his return. Otto's wonderful parents, Fred and Cindy Warmbier, are here with us tonight, along with Otto's brother and sister, Austin and Greta. Please. incredible people. You are powerful witnesses to a menace that threatens our world, and your strength truly inspires us all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Tonight, we pledge to honor Otto's memory with total American resolve. Thank you. Finally, we are joined by one more witness to the ominous nature of this regime. His name is Mr. Ji Sung-ho. In 1996, Sung-ho was a starving boy in North Korea. One day he tried to steal coal from a railroad car to barter for a few scraps of food, which were very hard to get. In the process, he passed out on the train tracks, exhausted from hunger. He woke up as a train ran over his limbs. He then endured multiple amputations without anything to dull the pain or the hurt. His brother and sister gave what little food they had to help him recover and ate dirt themselves, permanently stunting their own growth. Later, he was tortured by North Korean authorities after returning from a brief visit to China. His tormentors wanted to know if he'd met any Christians. He had, and he resolved after that to be free. Sung-ho traveled thousands of miles on crutches all across China and Southeast Asia to freedom. Most of his family followed. His father was caught trying to escape and was tortured to death. Today, he lives in Seoul, where he rescues other defectors and broadcasts into North Korea what the regime fears most, the truth. Today, he has a new leg, but Sung-ho, I understand you still keep those old crutches as a reminder of how far you've come. Your great sacrifice is an inspiration to us all. Please, thank you. Sung-ho's story is a testament to the yearning of every human soul to live in freedom. It was that same yearning for freedom that nearly 250 years ago gave birth to a special place called America. It was a small cluster of colonies caught between a great ocean and a vast wilderness. It was home to an incredible people with a revolutionary idea that they could rule themselves, that they could chart their own destiny, and that together they could light up the entire world. That is what our country has always been about. That is what Americans have always stood for, always strived for, and always done. Atop the dome of this Capitol stands the Statue of Freedom. She stands tall and dignified among the monuments to our ancestors who fought and lived and died to protect her. Monuments to Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln and King. Memorials to the heroes of Yorktown and Saratoga. To young Americans who shed their blood on the shores of Normandy and the fields beyond, and others who went down in the waters of the Pacific and the skies all over Asia. And freedom stands tall over one more monument, this one, this Capitol, this living monument. This is the monument to the American people. We're a people whose heroes live not only in the past, but all around us, defending hope, pride, and defending the American way. They work in every trade. They sacrifice to raise a family. They care for our children at home. They defend our flag abroad. And they are strong moms and brave kids. They are firefighters and police officers and border agents, medics and Marines. But above all else, they are Americans. And this capital, this city, this nation belongs entirely to them. Our task is to respect them, to listen to them, to serve them, to protect them, and to always be worthy of them. Americans fill the world with art and music. They push the bounds of science and discovery, and they forever remind us of what we should never, ever forget. The people dreamed this country. The people built this country. And it's the people who are making America great again. As long as we are proud of who we are and what we are fighting for, there is nothing we cannot achieve. As long as we have confidence in our values, faith in our citizens, and trust in our God, we will never fail. Our families will thrive. Our people will prosper. And our nation will forever be safe and strong and proud and mighty and free. Thank you, and God bless America. Good night.
You've been watching the State of the Union address by President Donald Trump on Eagle Eye TV. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we've got live student reaction from several students here on campus, a live panel discussion just ahead. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
For all the papas out there, let's stop what we're doing and take a moment to be with our kids. They can be loud moments, goofy moments,
So let's do
sporty moments,
two in the
dorky
front,
moments.
and then
For all the papas out there, Let's stop what we're doing.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul,
Estimated time, 47 hours.
they will beg.
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
They will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out. Now you're talking. Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Safety first. Cheese curls second.
Are you orange?
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
It only takes a moment to make a moment.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
For all the papas out there, let's stop what we're doing and take a moment. A moment to be with our kids. They can be loud moments, goofy moments, sporty moments, dorky moments, kooky moments. Moments where we talk or walk or just hang out. It doesn't really matter. They all count because every time dads take a moment to be with their kids, well, it's pretty momentous. So let's all take a moment to make a moment today.
I'm Ferdinand. You look at me and think big. You think scary. But I'm a little misunderstood. Sorry, I almost killed you. Involvement misunderstood. I'm not a fighter.
I don't understand that at all.
Kids with learning and attention issues like dyslexia and ADHD are misunderstood too. Take the time to understand.
Best plan ever!
With the right support, everyone can reach their full potential because you can't judge a bull by his cover. Learn more at understood.org. Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason. Because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
Hi! Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert? Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our live coverage of the State of the Union address. President Donald Trump just wrapping up his speech in Washington. Back here in Auburn, we have a panel of guests with us, all from the lobby board here at Auburn University, to give us their input, feedback, and opinion on the President's State of the Union address. Just a couple of notes. He started off his address highlighting first responders from the wildfires in California to the hurricanes that ravaged several parts of our country. He also had several ties back here to Alabama, one of those being the Toyota Mazda plant that's just announced it's locating to Huntsville. Also, many members of Congress had buttons on their lapels that said Reese, that being a mention to Reese Taylor that Oprah mentioned in one of her recent speeches, and was actually in Alabama to visit her grave recently. She was raped by men walking home from church. It kind of a tribute to that Me Too movement that many of the women at the event were wearing black in recognition of. So I want to go ahead and turn it over to our panel. I want to ask you a couple of questions. One thing that we knew going into this is that President Trump would likely have an emphasis on economics. That's kind of his wheelhouse. That's what he's known for in the business world. Talked about 2.4 million new jobs being created, 200,000 in manufacturing alone. African American unemployment rate, the lowest ever, as well as in the Hispanic community. And then, of course, the plants coming to Huntsville, as well as a Chrysler plant relocating back to America. Thoughts on that, especially looking at the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. What is your perspective on the president's talk tonight, but also over this last year, working in the economic sector in his job?
Well, I just think that this past year and the economic policies that you've spoken of are just really just a tribute to the way that conservative economic policies do work and are good for this country. Specifically the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act has really affected American workers all the way down, and families all the way down to the middle class level and all the way up. And it's just really showing how the economy has really been ignited because of the policies put forth by the president. So I do think that he had a lot to brag about tonight, and I think that it was worthy of him to speak of. So I was glad to hear it.
One thing I want to ask about, a lot of people have kind of gone back and forth on the both sides of the aisle. The economic uptick that we're seeing right now, is that from what President Trump has done in his time in office, or is this some of the results we're starting to see from President Obama's time in office? And this is anyone who wants to answer this. Where do you see this being? Do you think this is more of a tribute to what President Trump has done, or are we seeing some benefits of President Obama's time beginning to play out?
I think it's absolutely a tribute of what President Trump has done. You look at deregulations. This administration has cut more administrations in the first year than any administration in our history. And as well as the tax cuts, now we have businesses pouring money back into our country. Money is coming back. Businesses are investing. You look at what Apple's doing, ExxonMobil, Toyota Mazda here in this great state of Alabama, as well as Chrysler. The economic principles of President Trump have caused an economic boom here in our country.
Tell me, go ahead, and make sure you're holding the mics up so we can hear you
first.
Quickly.
Me? Yeah. Well, it's really almost not a debate, honestly, in that there's no economic trend that I have found at unemployment, GDP, stock market that has changed at all under Trump. It has followed a very steady line for the last 10 years. The vast majority, last year, for example, there were more jobs created in 2016 than there were in 2017. But regardless, it's silly to try to attribute these gains to which president, because almost any economist will tell you presidents do not have that much of an effect on the economy as a whole. Now, you could argue that the tax cuts were implemented very recently, and they have not had time to affect, you can't attribute African-American job growth to tax cuts passed last month. However, and they have stimulated the economy short term, but was it the most efficient way to do it, adding $1 trillion to the deficit for the next multiple years? I don't know. I would say, looking at past trends, I would probably attribute it more to Obama, because things were statistics had it trending towards unemployment was on the decline, and the wages were on the increasing at the time.
There was a quote from President Trump during his speech. He said, "There's never been a better time to live the American dream." Tell me your thoughts on that. What do you agree with the president? Is this the best time to live that American dream, or is that maybe something that's shaded maybe a little rosier in the president's eyes than in those of the American people?
Well, I'll just respond by thinking, I think that all times are great times to live the American dream. I do have to say, though, that because of like I said in the beginning, the economic policies of this administration along with the Republican majority in Congress, consumer confidence is at an all-time high, business confidence is at an all-time high, corporations are reinvesting in this country, and that is directly affecting the American worker at the middle-class level in particular, which is what the president and the members of Congress promised with this tax cut. And I do think that it is a great time to be living the American dream with more money back in the pockets of everyday Americans. That benefits the country as a whole. And so, yeah, I agree with that sentiment of the president.
Just to basically back to what I was saying before, all these trends that we say, all these statistics about the economy that are very encouraging right now, it's just these are trends that have been on a steady path this entire time. And to say, like, if you have a graph going straight down and then Trump comes in and it goes the exact same rate it's been, why would you say Trump somehow ignited the economy? If we're reaping the benefits of the natural economic cycle. 10 years ago, we're in a massive recession. Now we're in a boom. In the 90s, we were in a boom. It'll happen again. But to attribute 1 year of growth where very little economic policy was really implemented to the president is naive, in my opinion.
Well, just quickly to respond, I'm very grateful that President Trump inherited a better economy than Obama did from Bush. We saw, and you're right about the economic trends, and that's good, but I definitely have to say that the growth in the stock market that we've seen at levels never recorded in history, and that is a growth in this 1 year that's unique to this administration. And I think looking at that shows that even though the full part of this economic policy hasn't taken root yet, but it does show that what's to lie ahead. Looking at the stock market does indicate greater things, and I think it's even going to go at a greater level. And so, yes, I do agree with what you're saying. I think that Obama did some good things for the country and laid a good foundation, but I think that the economic policies, particularly of this administration, are going to take this country to a new level that we haven't seen before.
One thing President Trump talked about tonight during his address is trust in government. He talked about 1,500 plus VA employees being fired, filling those positions with people that he says, quote, love veterans as much as he does. He talked about removing federal employees who have, as he says, failed the American people, and also talked about eliminating regulation more than any other administration. Do you think that these moves are doing things that bring people to trust the government more than they have previously? And do you think that there's other things that President Trump and his administration could be doing to gain that trust of the American people?
I'll start talking. Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's been pretty obvious for a while that we've had some major problems, especially with the VA, and I think, for your average American, they're not going to be able to actually go in and, see the day-to-day workings of that kind of thing, but just seeing the headline that somebody's doing something will definitely raise that trust. And, it's important, even when we switch to a Democratic president, it's important because people need to trust their government. And any steps in the right direction can definitely pave the way for more future policies. But what else got anything?
Can I get the question repeated?
Yeah, President Trump in his speech talked about several things, including getting rid of employees at the VA that he says did not love veterans as much as he did. He talked about replacing employees that failed the American people and eliminating regulation to help build trust in the American government. Do you think that the things that the president has done have rebuilt some trust in the federal government, or are there things that he could be doing to get that trust from the American people?
I definitely think to some extent that the things that he is doing has been building trust. With fixing the VA, I know that was a tremendous problem, which I know my grandfather personally had problems with the VA. And that system, working with Boys State and talking to Legionnaires, they would always complain about the VA. So I definitely think that is a tremendous benefit to be fixing that. As it relates to other government agencies, I'm not particularly sure. I think right now he's in a place where he's 50-50. Some people trust him and some people don't. And I don't know in particular what he could do to win over the trust of those that he does not have.
Going back to this last election season, I know that's a place that most Americans probably don't want to go. I think we can kind of all agree on that. It was a very tense time in our country. There's two people that I think no one would expect to agree on anything. That's Bernie Sanders, who was running on the Democratic side, and the president. But one thing he mentioned in his speech was drug prices being a top priority for him over the next year, that Americans pay more in drugs than most in any country, which is something that Bernie Sanders on the election trail that he was pointing out that was a key point for him, is that people were paying more for drugs in America than they would if they went other places. And Donald Trump says that he wants to try to bring those prices down. Do you think that's something feasibly he can do over this next year in his time in office? Obviously, was a little bit of a surprise to see two things that those guys agreed on.
Yeah. I'll start by saying I'm not exactly sure how much the president in his personal capacity can do to actually change that problem, but I do think that regardless of what he can do himself, I think it's an issue that is perfect for the State of the Union. The State of the Union is a time to bring Americans together from both sides of the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and everything in between. And one of the most bipartisan issues that has support from everyone across the political spectrum is that an increase in drug prices, especially for people who have to have them to save their lives, is a shame, especially in a country like the United States that champions human rights and liberties of all of our people and people around the world. And I do think that that's a really noble thing for the president to speak on, and I think that it's important for him to call on Congress to do everything within their power to go on that. And so, yeah, I think it is nice to see some agreement on issues like that, even with the president and Bernie Sanders. So,
I mean, to me, saying what he said, it's sort of like saying let's have world peace and let's decrease poverty. Everyone agrees on it, but I don't believe Donald Trump has any remote idea of how that's actually going to happen, especially considering that's been a problem for decades now that policymakers have been trying to work on forever. Obamacare tried to address that problem. Bernie Sanders has talked about the problem as well, but has not put forth many feasible plans himself. And so to me, I'm happy that he brought it up. I'm happy that he mentioned a problem that isn't talked about as much as it should be, but I am not encouraged by him saying we're going to fix it just vaguely, considering last year he also said the infrastructure, for example, he promised the exact same $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill last year, and nothing changed with it.
I think the problem with medicine is similar to that of the problem with oil. Of each president says, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to make it lower, but I don't know how feasible that is. And I do not think it's under his control. It's great to hear him say it is something that needs to be done, and I think that is a bipartisan effort, and everyone agrees on that. But I don't know how feasible that is.
The only thing I'll say just really quickly is that, and I agree with both of what you guys have said, and I mean, I have every day it seems that I have less and less faith in the government, especially the federal government. And I agree with what you guys are saying with the sentiment that you don't really know how much that the president himself is capable of doing. However, I do think that failure of the past is no excuse to shy away from a fight. And I think that, like I said just a second ago, it's an issue that all Americans agree on, and it's something that needs to be addressed. That's the fundamental issue with healthcare costs, is the price of prescription drugs, and it's an issue that needs to be tackled, and it's one that may not be politically motivating necessarily all the time, but it's one that needs to happen.
One thing that President Trump talked about during his speech, and another thing that was expected, is immigration. Following the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that is expected to be his next big push. He had in attendance today the families of victims of violence from those in the MS-13 gang, and he said he wanted to work across the aisle, bipartisan effort with members of Congress, to create a plan to tighten America's stance on immigration. He introduced 4 pillars: path to citizenship for 1.5 Americans, also to a fully secure border wall and more law enforcement for the border. His third point being to end the visa lottery and to make it merit-based and skill-based and for those that want to work, and also ending chain migration and focusing on immediate family and limiting the sponsorships for spouses and minor children. Does this seem like something that, for those of you on both sides of the aisle, is a bipartisan agreement? He said it was something where everybody was having to compromise. Do you see this as an equal compromise, or are there things that this is a little more sway towards the president's way or others? What is your opinion?
I think this has appeal on both sides of the aisle. Republicans don't get everything they want. Democrats do not get everything they want. Yet Republicans would like to see E-Verify expanded and required, and yet that's not included. And the amnesty for these 1.8 million illegal immigrants is pathway to citizenship over the course of 12 years is certainly not something that Republicans wanted to see. Yet it's something there has to be compromise. This is something has to be bipartisan for us to reach immigration reform. And so I think certainly that the president called for Democrats and Republicans to come together, and I think that they should. It's something that this country needs, and both sides get something that they want. We can't all get everything we want.
Anybody else?
I'd have to say I was quite intrigued to hear some of the ideas proposed in this speech, especially the pathway to citizenship. I definitely think this is somewhat of a bipartisan effort, but I want to hold judgment until it's actually put down on paper.
I do agree. The pathway to citizenship was very appealing. I think that's a great concession. However, my problem with his immigration policy and his immigration rhetoric is less with the policy itself and more with the implications of it. And it's that he frames it as if illegal immigrants are a massive issue that are like the MS-13 highlighting it. Obviously, nobody wants gang members in the United States, like sneaking into the United States. But the fact remains that illegal immigrants commit crime at a lower rate than native-born United States citizens. And that, I think, is all we need to know to say, like, this, we are overinflating the issue of illegal immigration. And I believe that the implications of that are just increased hesitance for immigration in general. And people in general have become, because of Trump or cause Trump, it's back and forth, more xenophobic and more scared of immigration, especially when you talk about things like chain migration, which is extremely misleading because family members who get approved and get into the United States after the very difficult immigration process are allowed to sponsor other members, as in it just gets them a little bit of an extra boost to get in. It still takes years. It still is in a lottery system a lot of the times. They still go through extensive background checks, and I can say this through experience. Like, it's not like Trump frames it in that if one family member gets in, they're just allowed to bring 200 family members just without getting checked on. It's just a myth, and it's just creating more division between races and immigrants and non-immigrants.
Can I make a quick response? And I agree with what you said about, statistically, illegal immigrants committing less crime than native-born Americans. But I think the real issue is that the fact that there is any crime being committed by illegal immigrants is a problem because they shouldn't have been here illegally in the first place. And I think that that's what you have to keep in mind is that it's unfortunate. And I agree with the sentiment of the DACA dreamers. And I think that they're here by no fault of their own. And I definitely think that there's something noble to be said about allowing a pathway to citizenship for those individuals. And I think that that's a bipartisan agreement, and I'm glad that it's featured in the bill. But ultimately what it comes down to is we can argue the merits of how illegal immigrants provide to our society or do not. But the fact is they're here illegally, and they have broken our laws. And going forward, especially now that the president's been so generous as to offer a pathway to citizenship, making a way in the future for the same problems not to continue to happen. I mean, we've had this conversation long before any of us were born, and I bet we'll keep having it long after we're dead. But the problem is we keep addressing the same problem the same way, and it keeps having the same result. And I think that there is something to be said for the proposals that the president's making that are going to make some fundamental changes to the system.
And I also think it's important to mention that what the president's proposing in this merit-based system is not unprecedented. As he said Our immigration system is outdated. You look at what Canada has a merit-based system. The visa lottery is just illogical. We need immigrants to come into our country who can contribute and be productive members of society. What can they offer us to help us uplift our country and to make contributions to the economy? The merit-based system, I think, would be a great thing for our country.
Talking about the border wall, President Trump ran on this very hard during the election, has talked about it consistently since he has been in office. This is a very expensive, what he calls fix to this problem. Do you think that a border wall, is it worth the money that America would be spending on it? Do you think it would be effective enough for Americans, for their taxpayer dollars to go towards building that border wall?
The president, he's a man of big words, especially on the campaign trail. And he said a lot of big things, made a lot of big promises, and I think one of those is one of the most iconic things he said on the campaign trail is, remember, rally. It didn't matter if it was in Florida, Texas, Alabama, wherever you were, we're going to build a wall, and who's going to pay for it? And the crowd screams Mexico. And I definitely think that the way, that some people who voted for Trump envision that wall is very different than the one that would be built. But I definitely think that there is a need for a border wall in some capacity, and I definitely think it's worth spending the resources. I mean, if you look at countries across the world, especially in Europe, countries that are very divided in terms of their borders, border walls do work to keep illegal immigrants out. It only does so much. It has to be supplemented with increasing funds for Border Patrol agents, technologies, and all those kinds of things. But I definitely think that a border wall is necessary to a certain extent. Maybe not quite as big as many had anticipated, but I definitely think that there's something to be said for it in part.
This will kind of be our last topic, talking about North Korea. The president has been going back and forth with Kim Jong-un, especially on Twitter, and some of the things that he said there, many consider inflammatory. Tell me, I want to see a show of hands on this one. Those of you that are legitimately concerned of an American war, if you will, nuclear conflict with North Korea, raise your hand.
Nuclear specifically?
Nuclear or physical war, minus nuclear aspect. Tell me, why you think this, and also statements that the president's made, specifically on Twitter, those talking about the big button that he has to launch America's nukes, things of that nature. Do you think that puts America in a more volatile place than what we typically are?
Well, I mean, with that question, I would say there's a difference between, thinking that it's going to happen. I mean, hopefully it's not. I really don't think it will, but I mean, it is something that everybody should be concerned with. Now, in terms of like the tweets and what people have called inflammatory, I don't personally think they're as inflammatory as some people would say, because really there comes a time where you have to, it's called mutually assured destruction, and you have to say that, all right, back off, and if you do anything, like, your country will be destroyed. I mean, we will be hurt, but your country will be destroyed as well. And it's a deterrent, and you say that because you don't want it to come to that. And I think the big button, it probably had North Korea pretty concerned. They probably had a pretty big meeting about it, and I know that they had, and I know that they had some. And if I remember right, I can't remember the exact headline, but I want to say they reached out to South Korea for the first time in a long time right after that. So I think it was effective in that case. Polite diplomacy can only go so far, and if it's necessary, sometimes, in the words of Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly and carry a big stick.
I think it's one thing the president said in the speech. The weakness results in conflict. He speaks of modernizing our nuclear arsenal. We need to be powerful. Kim Jong-un and the North Korean regime, they're threatening our country, and we can't stand for that. And President Trump and Secretary Mattis have made that commitment to protect the American people, and I believe in strength through power.
I think that there's something to be said for diplomacy, and I think that the United States of America has used it to our advantage throughout our history. But there also comes a point when you have to realize that you're dealing with a regime who has absolutely no respect for human life. We saw that man who was, fled North Korea and now lives in South Korea and helps other people do the same, and brutally tortured him and his almost his entire family, killing his father, they said. And there comes a point whenever you're dealing with a regime who's willing to go that far, tough talk is necessary, and they have to understand that the United States is serious, and I think that's what the president's trying to convey. And so ultimately, I just think I agree with, the sentiment that we've been talking about, speak softly but carry a big stick, and know that the United States of America is serious, and that we take the threat seriously, and we're not going to back down.
I definitely do think some of his rhetoric has been helpful in deterring North Korea. But I am, to some extent, still afraid that some of his words could be taken as really fighting words and actually make them angry. For right now, everything is good, but I'm worried about the future, and when will his words be too much?
I want to say a big thank you to all of you that have stuck with us. We have one more segment coming up. We'll be speaking with Democratic and Republican leaders from here on campus about their view of President Trump's first bit of time in office leading up to this first State of the Union address. To those of you that served on the panel, we thank you very much for your input. As we continue to dissect and look through the President's State of the Union address, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be back right after this.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul.
Estimated time, 47 hours.
They will beg.
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
They will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out.
Now you're talking?
Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second.
Are you orange?
We were just waiting on a clear. Waiting on a clear. We're not live anymore.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
It only takes a moment to make a moment.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate, and it's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
For all the papas out there, let's stop what we're doing and take a moment. A moment to be with our kids. They can be loud moments, goofy moments, sporty moments, dorky moments, kooky moments. Moments where we talk or walk or just hang out. It doesn't really matter. They all count, because every time dads take a moment to be with their kids, well, it's pretty momentous. So let's all take a moment to make a moment today.
I'm Ferdinand. You look at me and think big. You think scary. But I'm a little misunderstood. Sorry, I almost killed you. We've all been misunderstood. You're not a fighter.
I don't understand that at all.
Kids with learning and attention issues like dyslexia and ADHD are misunderstood too. Take the time to understand.
Best plan ever!
With the right support, everyone can reach their full potential because you can't judge a bull by his cover. Learn more at understood.org.
Good evening and welcome back to our live coverage. Good evening and welcome back to our live coverage of the State of the Union address. President Trump wrapping up from Washington just a short time ago. We just spoke with our panel of guests from the lobbying board here at Auburn University. Now I've got two leaders from two different sides of the aisle here at Auburn University. I've got Calvin Wilborn. He's the vice president of the College Democrats of America. Also Seth Ingram. He is the vice chairman of College Republicans here at Auburn University. Thank you both for joining us this evening. I want to give you just a minute to kind of give general statements. I want to talk about the president's first year, or not first year, but his first segment of time in office leading up to this first State of the Union address. Calvin, we'll start with you. Just kind of give me a report card overview, if you will, of the president's time in office so far.
Well, I think the State of the Union really summarizes what we've seen over the last 365 days. We see him making statements, but then making erratic decisions to turn around. He says he wants to work across the aisle, but then he'll rescind DOC and do things like that. So I think it's just a microcosm and just an example of the many decisions he's made and the contradictory statements he's made. Also, in tonight's State of the Union, we also saw what it seems like a continuation of the campaign trail. Still making with the statements, let's build a wall, America first, but not really making the legislative gains and working across the aisle to get that accomplished. So that's what we've seen a lot in this first year of actually getting things done and making sure that it's impacting and uplifting all citizens.
Well, I believe President Trump has really accomplished a good bit in his first year as president. Of course, the economic boom that we've seen, milestone after milestone has been reached, record after record has been broken. You see unemployment levels for Black and Hispanic Americans at all-time lows, small business confidence levels at all-time highs. And you look at the deregulations occurred, regulations have been cut at paces we've never seen before here in the first year of this administration. And we look at the appointment of circuit judges at record levels, and Neil Gorsuch, of course, being appointed to the Supreme Court. President Trump has truly accomplished a lot. The war on terror, as he mentioned in the speech, ISIS territory, nearly 100% has been liberated. So I believe President Trump and his administration has accomplished a good bit in this first year of his presidency.
We heard a little bit from you about this in the last segment, but I want to get both of you to talk about this. The economic boom that the president talked about, and the African-American job rate at an all-time, or unemployment rate, excuse me, at an all-time low, Hispanic unemployment rate at an all-time low, the big booms in industry in America. Do you think that is something that we can credit to President Trump, or is that something that is from policies building over time?
I don't really think he can take, honestly, credit for any of that. We have to realize, until lately, we're really still operating in his first fiscal year as president, so the policies that he's implemented are really still taking effect. Once we look at, he quotes often the African-American unemployment rate is at a low, but we see that trend starting over 7-8 years ago when Obama took office the second time. So, we really saw those deep dives, and now we're seeing still the benefit of that, even a year removed from President Obama's term. So for him to take credit of things that really isn't his work is a bit, I don't know. I don't think that's presidential.
Well, I certainly believe there was a trend when he came in, and he inherited a much better situation than President Obama did. And yet, you look at the deregulations. American businesses have been set free by the Trump administration's actions, and I do believe that he deserves a lot of credit for how great our economy has been doing, although Obama deserves some credit as well. and yet the Trump administration, now with tax cuts, I believe we're going to continue to see an economic boom here in our country.
If you will just hold your mic a little bit higher, they're having trouble hearing you in the control room. President Trump has boasted an American first agenda and putting America first in any decision that he's making. Do you think that's something that he's done, that there's evidence of him doing during his first year in office?
I believe so, and you see his commitment. He's trying to push for the immigration reform. One of my favorite quotes from the speech is, "Americans are dreamers too." And we see our country helps needy all across the world, and yet the concern that he has and he should have is putting America first and American citizens first, and his commitment to renegotiating these trade deals such as NAFTA, and of course his withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord. I think he's taking steps to put the American people first.
Calvin, America first, or is that what we're doing right now, or do you see it differently?
I think Trump's perspective of America first is a particular group of people. Over the past year, I haven't seen all Americans put first. When you have a president that has said disparaging comments about people like John Lewis, who are icons even to me as an African American on campus, it's hard for me to honestly say him putting America first. I think he has a certain idea of certain Americans. You're talking about a president that said people on both sides during, protests with Klansmen. People on both sides they're good people on both sides. So I don't see an America first agenda for all Americans. I see America first agenda for just a particular group.
So tell me, this is something that I think a lot of people, particularly minorities in America, have said that President Trump has more of a certain population of Americans' America First agenda. Do you think that's true, or do you believe that this is a truly all-American First agenda?
I believe that President Trump desires to put all American first, to be the president of all Americans. I know he often points to the unemployment rates among blacks and Hispanics, and he's made efforts to reach out to minority groups. The actions he has taken, his tax cuts, it benefits all Americans across the board. So I certainly think that he's trying to appeal to all groups, putting America first.
I want to ask y'all, internationally speaking here, and the view of the world's view of America, things that we're seeing right now with the Mueller investigation and the looking at Russian meddling in the presidential election, things like this, do you think this gives those around the world a negative view of what America is and supposed to be the superpower across the world, providing peace and aid and comfort across the world? Do you think that almost like we're helping others but also trying to clean up a mess in our own house, do you think that's hurting people's view of America?
I think so, especially, one of the things that's been important to me is to see the president move the embassy to Jerusalem. I think that's something that on the national level has given us a sign that, how can we be for peace and a two-state solution if that's what we, if that's what we support and that's what we want to do. So I think, the president really has a lack of understanding of how his actions impact the global world. Thousands of people, were under violence and are still under violence just because of one decision and one announcement that he made. So I think that once the president understands the grand scope of things and people's lives are really depending on every word that he says, then I think that, maybe we can have a better worldview and people view us better.
The Russian investigation, I do believe it's not producing a good look for our country. And Robert Mueller, of course, leading this investigation. Really, the evidence has not been found, and I would like to see this investigation really come to a close. I don't think it's good for our country, and I don't think other countries, as you see the America they need to see with this investigation ongoing.
There were reports coming out today of potentially the president looking to get rid of Robert Mueller, to try to fire him. That's been talked about different times in different ways over the course of this investigation. Do you think that says something, that the president could be trying to hide something? Do you think he thinks he's not being treated fairly? What are your views on that front?
I definitely think there's something fishy about that. One of my good friends and someone I adore, Maxine Waters, she holds the president accountable every day. And, she does not have a problem with holding her comments on, his moves, his decisions. And we've seen this over again with the FBI director. Now he wants to go after Robert Mueller. It seems like he's trying to hide something. And when you make decisions like that, whether it's honest or not, that's the perception it gives off, and especially when you're president. So you have to be conscious of those decisions. I personally think there must be something amiss if he got upset at Attorney General Sessions for recusing himself. So all of this anger and wanting to make decisions and changes over the people that are going to be prosecuting him and enforcing the law, to me that's a sign that something's amiss, something's not right.
Do you think it's President Trump trying to hide something? Do you think he thinks he's not being treated fairly? Do you think he's not being treated fairly? What is your view on that?
I certainly believe it's President Trump believing he's not being treated fairly. Many times he's called it a witch hunt in his tweets, of course, and he believes that it's a witch hunt. He's not being treated fairly. And, of course, I don't believe he's trying to hide anything by this. And, of course, he has every right to fire Mueller. Yet I do not believe that would be a good choice at all. And the White House counsel has conveyed that to him as well, apparently.
I want to ask you about Twitter. The president loves Twitter. It's probably become something that's a hot topic among many Americans. Should he tweet? Should he not tweet? Should he tweet the things that he's tweeting? Do you think that in a presidential capacity he should continue using the Twitter the way that he is? Do you think he should change what he's doing or cut it out at all?
I think as we move into the modern era, I think Twitter, Facebook are all great examples and all great avenues to connect with millennials. You're talking about young people on college campuses, Twitter and Facebook. I think it was so exciting when President Obama finally got Facebook, and this was passed post-2012.
Crazy to think about now.
Yes. So, I think that, I hate to demonize the systems and say that the systems aren't great. I think that they could be great when they're used correctly. I don't think we should be attacking other leaders on, talking about how big our buttons are and what we can press. Those are juvenile things that we shouldn't be doing from the office of the president, whether it be Twitter, memos, Facebook posts. So, I don't demonize the systems, but the way he goes about handling and the way he uses them, I think is not appropriate.
Twitter, yes, no, change?
I would certainly like to see a change in the way President Trump uses Twitter. I think some of his tweets are divisive and even immature. I would like to see him tone it down, and I would love to see him stay on Twitter. Some of his tweets are good for him ways for him to get news out to the American people and to the base and go around what he calls the fake news media. And yet some of his tweets just are completely unnecessary, so I would like to see him tone it down.
Well, Seth, Calvin, I want to thank you both for joining us this evening. This concludes our coverage of the State of the Union. We will be returning to regular programming soon. We hope you have enjoyed this and the discussion that has come from it. We will be back here on Thursday night with more coverage of local news as well as the national discussion that will come forth in the next couple of days following this State of the Union address. Good night.
Patriotism.